Right, so we now have a full undercard announced for next month's undisputed heavyweight title fight between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. And Turkey Al-Sheikh, I've got to hand it to you, my friend. Once again, this one is pretty stacked. It's a Tyson Fury card, which means one thing and one thing only, and that is that obviously his best friend Isaac Lowe will be boxing on the card. You've also got Mark Chamberlain in there, who recently boxed on the AJ Ngannou card. You've got Joe Cordina in a world title fight against Anthony Kakache, and we've got a whole other host of fighters on this card. I mean, when we look at Saudi cards now, we've got to really define and alter our perception maybe on what a Saudi card should entail, because I do believe, despite it not being the first card that the Saudis have put on, our perception of what we should expect from these cards was somewhat distorted by the Day of Reckoning card at the back end of last year. That card was completely stacked, mostly with heavyweight fights, and for that reason, I don't believe that financially, even being the Saudis who have pockets deeper than anything you could imagine, I don't think that we can hold them to that same standard for every single card. And in the card we've got here, I think straight away, if we're using the Day of Reckoning card as the benchmark, this one's below it, but it is above the AJ against Ngannou card. So let's speak about the fights that I'm particularly excited about, all the fighters that I'm excited to see. And one man that heavyweight boxing fans will be excited to see on this card is rising prospect Moses Atoma. He will be going in there with an opponent who I don't think I know. Well, I don't know, do I? I definitely can't pronounce his name. Should we give it a go? I don't know if this will end well. Mezhenchev, I believe, is the opponent's name. But don't worry, because it's not about Mezhenchev, it's about Moses Atoma. And this boy has all of the ingredients to become a serious player in the heavyweight division. But just how long will it take the 6'6" big punching southpaw heavyweight to become a serious player? Because at 19 years old, I can't see them really propelling him into massive fights all that soon. However, at a glance, Mezhenchev, if I'm not butchering that name, should give us some sort of answers as to where Moses Atoma is at right now. Because this guy's 24-3 with 20 of those wins coming by way of knockout. And that is pretty impressive. Until you look at his record, and then you look at the loss column, and then you see that actually he was stopped by Tom Schwartz. And not only was he knocked out by Tom Schwartz, he was also knocked out by Tom Schwartz. Not another Tom Schwartz. Same Tom Schwartz. He's boxed his fella twice and he stopped him inside the distance both times. Not a good sign. I'll tell you what else ain't a good sign. He's also coming off the back of a loss. So all this being said, we'd imagine that Moses Atoma is going to be a heavy favourite against this guy, don't we? But heavy favourite or not, I'm excited to see this heavyweight in there doing his thing. Hopefully, should I try and pronounce his name again? I'm not, because I've forgot it now. But the opponent, the guy that Moses Atoma's fighting, hopefully puts up a bit of a fight and we can see some of the elements of Moses Atoma's game that we haven't been able to see yet. Maybe when he's put under serious pressure, maybe when he has to do a few more rounds. So let's see how that one unfolds. Another man I'm very excited to see on this card, but I think I'm possibly more just excited to see him rather than the fight that he was in, because I don't know how competitive it will be, is Sergey Kovalev. Sergey Kovalev is a man that I believe should get a lot more credit from boxing fans. For my money, he was one of the best fighters of the 2010s. I literally remember sitting at home on the sofa and watching Sergey Kovalev come over to Cardiff and absolutely starch an unbeaten at the time Nathan Cleverly, when we were all very high on Nathan Cleverly, you know. And after he came over and beat Cleverly on a Frank Warren show, he had some really credible wins. Bernard Hopkins, John Pascal a couple of times. But by the time he got to Andre Ward, who he boxed twice, by the way, I do think we had seen the best of Sergey Kovalev. And as controversial as it may have been at the time, the stoppage in their second fight for me spelt the end of the Crusher. Not Sergey Kovalev, but the Crusher version of Sergey Kovalev. That fight was 7 years ago. Now, boxing fans could argue that Kovalev has actually won a world title, twice since that fight, but I just think that can be a little bit deceiving. And Sergey Kovalev, now at the age of 41 years old, having fought just once since he was stopped by Canelo. Again, that fight was 5 years ago. Time just flies, doesn't it? Basically, what I'm saying is, as I'm going through this and I'm talking with you guys, I'm starting to realise that it's not the fight that I'm excited for. It's probably the fact that I believe this may well be the last time we see Sergey Kovalev, especially on this sort of stage. I mean, come on, man, he's up at cruiserweight now. Surely you're not looking at Kovalev and you're thinking, well, if he gets a couple of wins, him against Jai Opetaia, or, you know, him against Gilberto Ramirez. I don't even know if I'd fancy him against Lawrence Okoli, Chris Billum-Smith, fighters that, okay, they're naturally a lot bigger than him maybe, but potentially back in the Crusher era, wouldn't have been able to lace Sergey Kovalev's boots. So I do think that we've definitely seen the best of Kovalev now, and maybe it's a bit more of a gimmick, maybe a bit more of just a big name to bump up the card. But either way, I am looking forward to seeing him. And then when you factor in the case that his opponent is 16-0, he'll be naturally bigger than Kovalev. He's taller and has a longer reach than Kovalev, and he's 10 years younger than Kovalev. Could the Crusher, or the once Crusher, Sergey Kovalev, be biting off more than he could chew here in this fight? Probably not, if I'm being honest. You know, Safar, is it Safar? I don't know, but Safar has no standout names on his record. His resume isn't really stacked, is it, at 16-0? I can't really see of any amateur or standout amateur experience that he's had, and all of these things make me lean towards the fact that we're going to see Sergey Kovalev get a win here. Now, if he does get a win here, unfortunately, it's really not what I would like, but I could see him maybe going on and trying to get a couple more paydays, and in doing so, would probably become somewhat of a gatekeeper, I should say, at world level in the cruiserweight division. So not really something I want to see, but at the end of the day, maybe Sergey Kovalev will come back in a fight that really, really excites fight fans again, and then maybe it would build our appetite to see him have one more roll of the dice in a world title fight. Jai Opetaia against Marius Briedis. This fight was supposed to happen. It didn't happen. Now it's been rescheduled, and I can't fucking wait for this one. And I'll tell you what, I'm really, really excited to see how this unfolds, because when you look back to the first fight between these two guys in 2022, it was one that surprised a lot of us. I think for me, and a lot of fight fans included, it was sort of the coming out party of Jai Opetaia, because the fact that he hadn't really boxed outside of Australia before that fight, and even in that fight, meant that I didn't really know all that much about him, because if he had fought in other countries or fought on other promotions, maybe he would have been a bit more of an established name on the way up, almost like a Lawrence Okoli was. But the fact that he had pretty much boxed exclusively in Australia meant that the eyeballs just had not been on Jai Opetaia, and when the fight started between these two, a lot of boxing fans, including myself, were looking at it thinking, how did I not know about this kid? And for 8 rounds, he pretty much boxed the ears off Marius Briedis, didn't he? And I don't think anyone saw that coming, you know. He was so good in that fight. His foot speed, his hand speed, his shot selection for a big man was really good. He made it a young man's fight against Briedis, and why he could keep it a young man's fight, it was always going to go in his favour. He did a very good job of not giving Briedis a sniff early on. However, towards the latter stages of that fight, disaster struck for Jai Opetaia when Marius Briedis broke the Australian's jaw. And had it not been for him getting his jaw broken, I don't think there'd be that many people sort of eagerly anticipating a rematch between these two, because I do think that was the turning point. But when that happened, what happened was Marius Briedis was able to make it a lot of a closer fight. He was catching Jai Opetaia a lot more than he was originally, and he managed to be able to slow down Jai Opetaia, you know. Jai Opetaia's foot speed slowed down a little bit, but also the main thing was his exits, you know. Before, Jai Opetaia bang, bang, in and then straight back out, and once the nose was broken, he was getting in quick, he weren't getting out that quick, and Marius Briedis was landing shots here. Now, Marius Briedis did have a lot of things going against him in this fight, not just the youth of Jai Opetaia in front of him, but also, you know, you factor in the fact that Briedis doesn't usually fight outside of his home country in Latvia. This time, he's going halfway across the world to Australia. Not only that, but Jai Opetaia wasn't massively known, and because of that, potentially Marius Briedis could have thought that this fight would be a bit more simple than it ended up being. And not only that, the fact that Marius Bradis will feel like he came on strong later on in the fight would maybe give him more incentivization to come on strong quicker in this one. And as much as Bradis is now nearing 40 and will be a betting underdog with this one, I don't think that you could say that this fight won't be competitive. I think it will be. I think we'll learn a lot from Jai Opetaia in this fight. Let's remember, by the way, whose undercard this is on. Oleksandr Usyk. And many people have said that in the pro rank so far, we haven't seen many faults in Oleksandr Usyk. Many people also say, oh, Derek Chisora, maybe Daniel Dubois gave Oleksandr Usyk the closest fight or the toughest fight we've seen in the pro ranks. But that is wrong. Marius Bradis gave Oleksandr Usyk the toughest fight that we've seen. And you look at where Usyk's gone to since that point. I truly believe that Marius Bradis can make serious problems for Jai Opetaia. However, while saying that, I think Jai Opetaia might stop him this time. And I think he'll get the job done quicker. Well, definitely quicker if he stops him because the last one went to points. What I believe is Marius Bradis won't be caught by the element of surprise, just shock, potentially the jet lag if that even happened. And he'll know what he's coming into. He'll also know when he had more success in the last fight, which was at the latter stages when the jaw was broken. He was able to pile on a little bit more pressure. All of those things make me think that Bradis will start this fight quicker, and in him starting it quicker, and with him being 10 years Jai Opetaia senior, I do think that Jai Opetaia will stop Bradis down the stretch in this one. And my pick of the undercard fights, my personal favourite here, is Agit Kabayel against Frank Sanchez. Kabayel shocked a lot of people on the Day of Reckoning card when the 4-1 underdog with the bookmakers took on, beat and stopped one of the scariest looking men I think I've ever laid eyes on in Makhmudov, who, by the way, is actually scheduled to fight Junior Farr next. Not on this card, it's on another one. It's not really relevant at all, but what I'm trying to say is they've done a straight swap, you know. Frank Sanchez just beat Junior Farr, Agit Kabayel just beat Makhmudov. Agit Kabayel's now fighting Frank Sanchez. Yeah, it's not important, is it? I don't know why I'm going on about that one. But anyway, Sanchez obviously looks like the more athletically gifted out of these two men. He maybe has the more explosive power, and you would imagine, because of the fact that he has a reasonable amateur career as well before he turned pro, he may open up as the betting favourite in this fight. And the reason I say about an amateur career and put weight on that is because if you look at their pro records, they're pretty much like for like. There's nothing really to split these two guys, you know. They're both 24-0. They've got a similar knockout percentage, pretty much same height, same reach. Kabayel's coming in with his best wins being, Makhmudov and Derek Chisora, maybe. And then we look at Frank Sanchez. Who are Frank Sanchez's best wins? Junior Farr, is that even a good win? Well, the best win out of everyone I've just named does belong to Frank Sanchez because he beat F.A. Ajagba. So being that Frank Sanchez has a win over Ajagba, being that he looks more pleasing on the eye, you would imagine that he will go into this as the betting favourite. However, I think even after the Makhmudov win, a lot of us are still just writing Agit Kabayel off way too early. Because against Makhmudov, he showed a decent chin. He showed a good engine. He showed very good punch selection for a big man, working to both body and head and creating the openings to the head from working the body. I was really impressed by him. And one thing I know about Agit Kabayel is he will come with a very solid game plan in this one. When I look at Frank Sanchez's fight, right, although he looks explosive when he lets his shots go, he really does want his work put on a plate to him. He wants to counterpunch you. He wants to wait for you to overcommit and then lure you into the dead space and get you. And I think that the reason we saw the first few rounds we did against Junior Farr, which was pretty boring if anyone remembers it, is because Junior Farr was not really taking the bait. However, Junior Farr does not have good footwork like Agit Kabayel might have. He can't move around a ring like him, and I don't think he has as good a jab or possibly as quick a hand speed as Agit Kabayel has. So I do think that if Agit Kabayel comes out and wants to box defensively in a low output fight against Frank Sanchez, it could end up being a game of chicken. Who shoots first? Who goes first? Because Agit Kabayel does look like he's a decent counterpuncher, and when Frank Sanchez is forced to push forward in a fight, he just doesn't look as comfortable as when he's letting that work come to him. But what I do know about this fight is it's a lot closer than people think, because a lot of the people I speak to are backing Frank Sanchez here, and I think as the card draws closer and I do some predictions, I may well end up backing another underdog Ajit Kabayel win. I'm really excited for this one, guys. What do you think of the card? Do you think it's better than the Knockout Chaos card, which was obviously Anthony Joshua against Francis Ngannou? I can't really remember the Tyson Fury against Francis Ngannou card all that well, but I know we've been getting some big heavyweight matchups. We're also now hearing that we could be getting Daniel Dubois against Hrgovic. We're hearing that we could be getting Zhilei Zhang against Deontay Wilder. That one will be fascinating. And we're also now seeing Joseph Parker call out Dillian Whyte in an absolutely epic call-out video. I would play it, but I'll get copyrighted on the sound, so it was Take That. It's a good song. People, let me know your thoughts on this card. Obviously, the main event is Tyson Fury against Oleksandr Usyk, but there's no point me going into that one and breaking it down now, because I think what you guys would like the most is me to do a completely separate video on that, and that's what I would like to do also. Please do me a massive favour. If you've made it to the end of the video, please like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. The channel's building, it's growing, and you're helping me do so. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all in the next one.